Zarina, I'm just planning to send a full chapter to you, uh, either from part 2 or part 1, like a big chapter. So you can follow them, okay? The videos.
Yes, yes,
Yeah. So I will inform which chapter. I'll message you. Okay.
yes.
Okay. Okay. So that day we discussed about the swaps. So I have explained you about the interest rate swap. There is one more swap called currency exchange swap, currency swap, okay, foreign currency swap. So I'll give a small like idea regarding currency swap, how it happens. So let's say this is a so there is a shop, there is like one Mr. A in UK and Mr. B in France. Both these people are friends, let's say, and both of them want to invest in respective countries, like in like the French gentlemen want to invest in UK and the UK gentlemen want to invest in France. So the biggest issue for these guys is they want to invest after 6 months and they know the exchange rates are not going to be stable after 6 months. The UK, either the pound is going to appreciate against francs and either the francs can appreciate against pounds. So anything, either way, the risk, the foreign exchange risk is there. So what they think is they enter into a swap agreement with some notional principal of say $1 million, and what they do is this guy, like this Mr. Gentleman A wants to start like wants to make a vineyard in France. He wants to invest in France. France is famous for wine, French wine, and UK, London happens to be a commercial hub. So B wants to start a departmental store in London. So B wants to start a departmental store in London. So what they do is they enter into currency exchange swap, as per which like B, like they won't go to banks and exchange their respective currencies. Instead, they invest for each other in their own countries with their own currencies. So now, as A want to invest in France, B would do that investment for A, okay, and as B want to invest in UK or London, so A would do that investment for B, and in this way they would avoid themselves from going to bank and exchanging their respective currencies after 6 months, and they will be saving themselves from foreign currency exchange risk, okay. And one party will definitely make additional payments because either of the currencies is going to appreciate, and the other party is going to, one party is going to be at the benefit, one party would benefit and one party would lose. That is what is there for any transaction. One party, suppose let's say Mr. A is benefited because of the currency exchange movements going in, currency exchange rate movements going in Mr. A's favor, and B. You're understanding, you're able to visualize what I'm saying, correct? Perceive what I'm saying, correct or wrong?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You're able to create that scenario, correct? Now,
Yes, sir.
so Mr. A is the one who is like benefited from this, and Mr. B is losing. But what they do is they equally share those benefits, and then what happens? The one party which is losing party can offset the loss with this benefit of swap transaction or currency swap, which both of them have done. Okay, so this is the way this is the way it works, and interest rate swap I have already explained using now. So let's go for this question and understand what is happening. So example, ABC company is in the US has issued these many euro bond denominated in euros. Okay, so they have issued this security in the foreign security actually, euro bonds, and it is denominated in foreign currency because there are investors with euros who want to invest in bonds issued by a US company. So US company has issued the securities denominated in euro, and those are called euro bonds. Those are international securities, and they are willing to accept a lower interest rate than the rate at which ABC company could borrow if it issued the bonds in the US. So that's what. So since the people who are going to buy the bonds are going to lend the company, since the company is borrowing, so they are willing to accept a lower interest rate. They are ready because the United States is more stable economy, and they know that like that their bonds, whatever they are buying, would be safe. Actually, there will be no chance of, or less chance of default. So they are ready to accept lower interest rate for that, and than what the company has to pay if they borrow from the US people. Okay. As soon as the bonds are issued, ABC company will need to convert this many euros it will receive from the bonds issuance into US dollars, because in their country US dollar is what works. In addition, ABC company will need to make its interest payments semi-annually, and it prefers to make those payments in US dollars. So finally, on the bonds maturity date, the principal will need to be repaid in euros to the investors who invested using euros. So they took euros, now they have to convert it into dollars, and they will make interest payments semi-annually. Okay, and finally, when the bond matures, uh, the principal whatever they have taken, they have to repay in euros because the investors have invested in euros. As part of the negotiations for the issuance of the bond, a currency swap can be negotiated with the investment bank that handles the bond issue. Okay, so they are going for a currency swap agreement. ABC and a counterparty exchange debt obligation that are denominated in different currencies, and the swap. So what is that? ABC and a counterparty exchange debt obligations that are denominated in different currencies, and swap includes both principal and interest payment. The principal amounts and the interest rates at the inception are equal to the currency exchange rate here, because during the inception there is no like currency exchanges because at the spot rate. Now, because of this swap agreement, ABC company is able to issue its euro bond and immediately exchange the euros it receives into US dollars at the current exchange rate. Yes. When it is time to make its semi-annual interest payments, it receives the number of euros it needs to pay the bondholders from the counterparty, the one with whom they have made the swap agreement, and pays the US counterparty in US dollars at a pre-arranged exchange rate. That means the exchange rate which they have fixed in the beginning itself. Okay. So what is happening as per the swap agreement? ABC company is able to issue its euro bond, immediately exchange the euros it receives into US dollars at the current spot rate. When it is time to make its semi-annual payments, since it has made a swap agreement, it will be receiving something, it will be paying something. It receives the number of euros it needs because it needs to pay to the bondholders the euros. So since it has entered into a swap agreement, it will be receiving the euros, okay, which they will be paying to bondholders from the counterparty. because other party with whom they have this swap agreement, and they pay to the counterparty in US dollars at a pre-arranged exchange rate. That means they have already fixed a exchange rate. That means here is this ABC bank and here is the XYZ party. These two have a swap agreement as per which ABC will be receiving euros from XYZ and it will be paying dollars to XYZ, and the payment of dollars will be at some exchange rate, some predetermined exchange rate. That is, already they have fixed the exchange rate. So this exchange of currencies, that means this guy giving dollars and this guy and ABC giving dollars to XYZ and receiving euros from ABC, is a swap agreement, and occurs at each interest payment date. At the bonds maturities, ABC receives principal. It needs to repay to the bondholders in euros from counterparty and pays the counterparty in US dollars. So again, in this way, what they have done is they have exchanged euros with dollars and dollars with euros, and they have initiated a swap transaction in that way at some predetermined rate. Okay, so at the bonds maturities, ABC receives the principal. It needs to repay to bondholders in euros from counterparty, that means XYZ, and pays the counterparty in US dollars. Again, at a pre-arranged exchange rate, and ABC uses euros to repay the bondholders. The counterparty will use US dollars it has received from ABC company to repay its bondholders in US dollars. Okay, because they even have borrowed from their they have also borrowed from the people in United States. Now they have to repay. So what has happened here? They agreed, they entered into swap agreement. These guys have issued euro bonds. So they want euro. So these guys have issued bonds in dollars. So these guys want dollars. So these guys, what they do, they take euros from them and give dollars to them. And these guys repay to them. These guys repay to them. And whatever the exchange they do at a predetermined rate. So there is no issue. So one party will be losing, one party will be gaining. They will share the mutual benefits. Okay. Floating to floating currency swap will have interest payments. So they are also exchanging the interest payments in respective currencies along with the principal. Floating to floating currency swap will have interest payments calculated at floating interest rates for both parties but in different currencies. And fixed to floating currency swap, one stream of interest payments will be in currency X at a fixed interest rate, while the other stream will be in currency Y at a floating interest rate. Okay. So floating to floating currency swap will have interest payments calculated at floating interest rates for both the parties, but in different currencies. So interest rates will be the one which will not be fixed. It will be floating, but in different currencies. Okay. And in fixed to floating currency swap, one stream of interest payments will be in currency X, let's say euro, which will be at fixed rate, and the dollars at the floating. Currency swaps can either be liability swaps or asset swaps. They can also exchange their liabilities. They can also exchange their assets. That means receivables and payables. Okay. Now let's go to the next topic. Use of foreign financing to reduce cost. A firm may want to borrow in foreign currency if interest rates in that currency are attractive. The development of euro currency market, that means internationally you can borrow, has opened up several financing options. That means if some country wants to borrow from another country where the interest rates are less, they can do that. For example, a US based MNC might be able to borrow US dollars in euro currency market. That means they can borrow dollars from other country, okay, at lower rate than what the US bank would charge, okay, for the borrowings. Alternatively, US firm might get financing in non-US dollars for euro currency market, even though it needs US dollars. The firm would simply borrow foreign currency, immediately convert that foreign into US currency, that is dollars, for use. When the loan is to be repaid, the company obtains foreign currency necessary to pay off the loan. So what they are doing, they are borrowing, borrowing in Indian rupees, okay, through euro currency market, converting into dollars, using the dollars, okay, and then again what they do, they repay the dollars, they repay the rupee afterwards. Okay, that means no, not dollars. So I'll say you there is a MNC, US MNC. What they have done, they have borrowed from Indian bank, let's say HDFC Bank, converted that into US dollars on spot rate and utilize that money in US. Now what they will do, they have to repay back to this HDFC Bank. So if any of their Indian branch can earn that rupees, and that they can pay to the HDFC Bank. So in this way, the future movements which would have happened in the currency exchange and which would have created an exchange rate risk has been minimized. Okay. Determining the effective interest rate on a foreign currency loan. So effective interest rate is nothing but it is the interest rate which captures the compounding very properly. Okay. Like effective interest rate, there's a formula for effective interest rate. We have a different version of this formula. We use this 1 plus I by n whole power n minus 1. This is the formula what we use actually. R is equal to, okay. So let's see what they are saying. So determining the effective interest rate on foreign currency loan. If you take a loan from in US dollars from US, so what is the rate you have to, the rate of interest which would be chargeable to you. So the actual cost of a loan in foreign currency will depend on two things. Actual cost of a loan in foreign currency, if you are borrowing from United States, the cost which you are going to incur will depend on two things. Interest rate on the loan, okay, because since you are borrowing in dollars, so what is the prevailing interest rate of dollars? Change in the borrowed currency's value over the term of the loan. So since you are borrowing in dollars, how it is going to behave with respect to rupees? That is what these two things are the ones which you have to consider to find out the cost. Okay. Now, the effective interest rate can be calculated using the following formula. This is the formula: effective financing rate 1 plus IF, the interest rate of foreign currency loan. So since you have taken the loan in dollars, that the interest rate in United States, and the percentage change in the foreign currency unit against the dollar. That means since this is from the United States perspective, they are saying if you are in USA and you are borrowing in rupee, what is the interest rate the Indian banks are going to charge you, and what is the percentage change in foreign currency unit against dollar. That means you have to see that. Okay. So how to find out that percentage change in foreign currency against dollar? So ST plus 1, the spot rate of the foreign currency in terms of US dollars. That means the spot rate you have to find. Spot rate of foreign currency in terms of US dollars at the end of the financing period. Suppose $1 is equal to 70 is today's spot rate, and $1 is equal to 75 is at the end of the year spot rate. So 75 minus 70 by 70 will give you the effective, the percentage change in the foreign currency unit against dollar. Okay. So these two things you have to take, and then you can find out the effective interest rate. So can you go for this question? Hello? Hello? Yes, just read these questions and now we'll discuss. Hello. Zarina, are you following? Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Are you reading this?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Now, let's go with this. MNC Corporation, a US MNC, is seeking to finance a project in US. So they want to finance. This is a MNC, okay, and it's a US based MNC. They want to like to finance a project in US and they require this much dollars. MNC preference is to borrow the full amount with no down payment. It seems. Don't know, very strange. They are looking for full finance. MNC can borrow locally at a fixed interest rate of this and can borrow in Japan at a fixed interest rate of 1%. So as we discussed, they are considering another country to buy to take loan. Okay, so that like they are seeing that there is some advantage if they borrow from Japan because the interest rate what the Japanese bank is charging is 1%. Okay, that's what. So MNC borrows in Japanese yen, so they borrow in the Japanese currency, and this is what they are borrowing because they converted these dollars into the exchange rate is given for $1 this much yen you have to shell out. Just a second. So this is what they can do is they can borrow what they are borrowing Japanese yen, which is equal to this much dollars, okay, and the exchange rate is given, and they will be charged this much as interest. When MNC receives the proceeds of the loan, then what they do, they convert the yen into dollars. Just a second. So MNC is prefers to borrow the full amount with no down payment, can borrow locally at higher interest rate, but they if they borrow from Japan, they would be charged this much. They borrow in Japanese yen, and when they borrow in Japanese yen, they immediately convert it into dollars. Okay, this much, and they use the fund for the project. 1 year later, MNC is supposed to pay this much yens to the Japanese bank plus the interest of 1% on this. Now, during the course of the year, US dollar depreciates against Japanese yen, and the exchange rate on maturity date of the loan is this. So, MNC will need these many dollars to purchase the necessary yen to repay the loan. As you can see, the exchange rate, which is equivalent to this much dollars in principal and this much in interest, correct? So they have converted this. Just a second, we'll convert and see what is that we are getting. This is what we are getting. This has the principal element and this also has the interest element. Now let us see the effective annual interest rate. So effective annual interest rate is nothing but the interest divided by the principal amount, 4.12. So MNC has been able to borrow in Japan at lower rate than it would have paid to borrow in US. To calculate effective interest rate on foreign currency denominated loan without going through all that. So instead of going with all this, what you can do, you can do just one thing. You can see the effective, you can just calculate this first thing, the effective exchange rate. Okay, effective, the percentage change in the foreign currency unit against dollar. So you can first find out this, which is what they have done. They have calculated the they have calculated the indirect quote here in terms of like 1 yen is this much dollars during the beginning, 1 yen is this much dollar at the end, and they have calculated this. And then what we can see is foreign currency has appreciated against the dollar. Yes, because you can see that previously you were paying 121.35, now you are paying less. So foreign currency has appreciated. And then that we have got that this is the interest rate in the foreign currency. So this is the effective rate you have got. So no need to do all this. Instead of this, you can directly use the formula and you can find out. Okay, just have a look to this, Zarina, then I'll move forward.
So done.
Yeah. Now, so now what you have to do is like you have to go through these questions. We are left over with the last and final topic, international payments. Okay, so we will continue with something here. Okay. So these international payments, of course, when we do an international transaction, we have to make the payments, correct? So payment for international transactions is more complex than domestic payments. Both the buyer and the seller have more risks because of the physical distance involved. Buyer wants to be sure that the items ordered will be received in timely manner and in acceptable condition. Seller wants to be sure of getting paid for it. These are the issues. So types of payment available are prepayment, that means advance payment by wire transfer. So banks generally do that. You have to go to bank and ask them that please do a wire transfer for me. They would do that instantly for you. So like or check in either US dollars or foreign currency. That means you have to give a check. Documentary collection by side draft or time draft. This is also one of the ways. Open account, consignment, credit card, international credit cards are there today, and counter trade or barter. So let's understand this. So prepayment may be made by wire transfer, which is bank to bank transfer actually. The denomination can be either US dollars or a foreign currency. If a wire transfer comes in the US from a foreign bank, so suppose ICICI Bank is doing the wire transfer. Excuse me, someone is calling. So yeah. So now if a wire transfer comes in US, that is from ICICI Bank is doing that, funds will be transferred through one or more correspondent banks. That means there will be a correspondent bank in between. So these guys will be giving the funds to them and those guys will be transferred to US before they reach their destination bank, which is a bank in US. So each correspondent bank that handles wire will take a fee out of the wired amount. So this bank will collect a fee. It is seller, if a seller wishes to receive the correct amount due for goods sold, seller bank should ask the buyer to wire the required amount net of all correspondent bank fees. Suppose these guys are making the payment to you, billed amount. They are making the billed amount payment. Okay, it's not their fault. But what happens is these banks will deduct the charges and give the payment to this guy. And this is not, it is like why this guy should receive or should bear those fees charges. What the other customer is other the one who has made the payment should bear. So this guy should send the amount inclusive of the fees. That means he should also send additional amount of which would be deducted as fees by the correspondent bank, and the entire exact amount can be given to the US customer. So the sending bank then deducts the adequate amount from, okay, in this way they deduct and they send. That's it. That's understood. Now prepayment may also be made by check. Prepayment by check carries more risk than prepayment by wire transfer. Why? Because check may the check may be honored or not. It is a question mark. Check will need to be collected through the seller's bank international collections process before collected funds will be deposited to the seller's bank. Seller's bank and any correspondent bank used for the collection will charge fees. Yes, a check would take longer time to arrive and then collected than a wire transfer. So wire transfer is more instant process actually. This when you give a check to the bank, your bank, to make the payment to the customer in US, first what they will do, they will collect the check. That collection takes time. Okay, and then that will be deposited into your account, and then they'll be sending to the correspondent banks. Correspondent banks will charge fees. This is a lengthy process, and if the check were denominated in foreign currency, exchange rate may have changed significantly by time the collected funds arrive. So these are the risks involved in this check. Okay, it's a lengthy process. In India even we feel that this is a lengthy process. So if you are sending it for international payments, definitely it's a lengthy process. Zarina will just continue the class in tomorrow, and I'll just wind up the chapter because tomorrow I'm only left over with documentary collections and drafts, open account, One, and this like one page. That's it. So almost all tomorrow I will end the chapter. Okay, this is the last class tomorrow for this. Then we'll start a new chapter. Just a second. I'm sending one full chapter to you, Zarina. You just finish that chapter. Okay, like one day, one video like that. Hello. 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 Hello.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay, understood.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Hello. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Hello. Yes, sir. I understood.
Thank you. Thank you.